welcome everybody. It's lovely to see such a great turnout for the Friday Lightning Talks. My name is not Abby, my name is Helen Scott. I have stepped in to host these, so I have like the face of Barry and the name of Abby, but I am neither. We have some great talks for you today. I'm really excited. We've got 4 speakers. So your Zoom account is being signed into on another device. Deny. It's mine. Don't change. Apologies for that. Just got a notification. So without further ado, I suggest we get started. We are going to kick off with Reuben Hillyer, and they're going to be talking about why software engineers make really good gardeners. So Reuben, this sounds like a really interesting topic. So I am going to mute. I'm going to hand over to you. Good luck and have fun.
Let me come off mute. Right, thank you. Hopefully I'm sharing my screen now. I use he, him pronouns, so you can call me he if you want to. Hey, good to be here. My first time here. A little bit nervous, but feeling quite confident about the content. So I'm Reuben Hillyer. I'm a lead engineer at MadeTech. We're a consultancy that work in the public sector, and we use technology to try and have a positive impact on society. But I've not got enough time to talk about me, so I want to try and plant this seed in your head, this idea about why I think that software engineers should make really good gardeners. You might hear that and think I'm barking up the wrong tree, but hopefully once we've dug into some of the parallels I've spotted, that seed will grow into a mighty oak, and you'll be leaving here thinking about software engineering a bit differently. So the starting point, I suppose, is why do I think this, right? Why do I think that your code is like a garden? Hopefully these well-maintained gardens at Blenheim Palace. So last year it came to me, and I'd been reading a book called Thinking in Systems by Donella Meadows, and it's really good. And I'd also been watching a talk by an ex-colleague on test-driven development, and she was talking about how she sees the elements of software delivery. That's like everyone in the team and the code, the production code and the test code, being a system. And I think there was this like unsaid idea, this notion that as leaders we're trying to find the right conditions and the right balance under which the team and the code can best flourish and best deliver value. So I kept thinking about it. I kind of thought about gardens, and I chucked in some research, and I think it holds together really nicely. So I just want to share it with everyone. So there's 4 high-level concepts I've got here, which are really the people, so the gardeners and the software engineers, the product, so the garden or the software, the plans, so that's like landscaping or software design, and then maintenance, which I couldn't find a parallel for. So BAU, upkeep of the product. So we'll crack on and look at people first, like software engineers and gardeners. What could they possibly have in common? I'm sure many of you have read The Pragmatic Programmer, like a really popular book in our industry. But it coined the idea of software craft, and quite literally the first tip in the book is tip 1, care about your craft. And for me, that means that as developers, we have this scope for flair or for individuality, for interpretation of requirements and care in our work, right? We can signature it in a way, you can tell it's by us. And like software development, gardening is also a skilled trade, right? You can express yourself. It's kind of a form of art in some ways. Programmers and gardeners both spend years honing their abilities, right? Learning new techniques, finding and discovering new tools, and then applying them in their day-to-day lives about, the things that they care about. So on to the products. So technology, as we all know, is continually evolving and changing every day, right? And our software applications are kind of the same, right? They age, they're living organisms, and they get old, and sometimes quickly. Sometimes we build software that takes hold and really thrives, and sometimes, perhaps more often in my experience, we build something which isn't quite right, but doesn't evolve as we expect. It might need a bit more thought or a change in behavior. And then sometimes, hopefully not too often, it needs to be thrown on the compost heap, right? It's just an experiment gone wrong, and that's okay too. But the idea is we always need to react to changes in conditions. We need to look at the environment, understand what's going on, choose the correct tool, like the correct language or the correct framework for the job in hand. And that takes us on to the plans. and landscaping or software design. So a software architect is quite a well-trodden career path for engineers, not for all of us, but for many of us, in the same way that maybe landscaping could be a career path for a gardener. You need a particular set of skills, but it flows in nicely. So when we take on a new project, we make a bunch of decisions at a really high level about how we expect it to look, what foundations we need to put in place, how we can make a start. But the upfront work is just one aspect, right, of software design or of landscaping. So when we build good software or make a nice garden, maybe, we continually practice clean code. We make the software easy to change, right? We try and design an evolutionary architecture, right, that can react or evolve as we learn about like that legacy component that just can't be moved, or that, that protocol that we have to work to or whatever. And then we consider, we architect to reduce risk, but we consider risks around security or performance or scale in the way that a gardener might think about the effects of sunlight or adverse weather conditions, or that pigeon nest in the bush over there, or whatever it might be. And then the maintenance BAU, we referred to it being like a living organism already, right? But you can't just leave software untouched, right? It gets old. You can't leave a garden, it overgrows it, you need to look after it. So some level of maintenance we've always got to perform, right? Some of that is day-to-day, some of that is weekly, monthly, or yearly. So in our normal day-to-day feature development, we're continually refactoring or splitting methods or renaming classes, abstracting concepts away, or whatever it might be. And a bit less often, we'd like play down some technical debt maybe, or perform like a bit of a restructuring. And those things in gardening terms might be like weeding or mowing your lawn or pruning your bush or pollarding your trees, which is one of the things I learned about it. It helps trees grow nicely. And then there's the really big jobs, right? So with legacy systems in particular, there might be some instrumental components that virtually never need to be touched. But when they do need work, it's quite an expensive investment, a big overhead, right? So then it's cost versus value exercise, similar to like removing a tree or replacing your fence, right? You don't do it often, but when you do, it kind of hits you for six. And so this is towards the end now. So coming clean is that I'm a really rubbish gardener, but I don't think I'm terrible at engineering. So I never knew I wasn't good at gardening, but after kind of going through this, I think it's I don't care enough, right? I don't have enough passion or enough discipline for gardening. I let it grow away from me, or I prioritize things, or I don't quite commit to it, or I make an old-fashioned excuse like it looks like rain. So if you come to me in your engineering team and ask if we should make that manual fix at the expense of automation, or skip the tests because it's quicker or because only one is failing, then I'll slap your wrist. But if you tell me that no mow May should be extended for the whole summer, then you might get more than you bargained for. So that's it really. Hopefully the main takeaway here is that there's loads of things that go into software engineering, lots of thinking to do around your software. We need to be agile, proactive and reactive to conditions. But when it all comes together, it's a really good feeling, great to look at and great to admire, like a garden on a sunny day. So thank you very much. Feel free to reach out on LinkedIn or give me some feedback. That'd be ace.
Fantastic. Thanks, Reuben. And actually, Peter's just already put a comment in. Excellent talk. I'm glad other people find gardening difficult, but software engineering fulfilling. I can also identify with that sentiment, definitely. My neighbour told me to do some gardening. How rude is that? I would also like to call out the book Systems Thinking by Donatella Meadows. I have the book. It is an excellent book. It's one of those books that when you read it, or at least I found myself thinking, well, that's kind of obvious, isn't it? Yeah. But it's a wonderful read, a wonderful book, and it does a great job of pulling things together. And certainly for me, it made me start to kind of go, oh yeah, that's a system. Why are we doing that way? So yeah, definitely. I found it really helps highlight flow and what helps things work. Yeah. Yes, exactly. Any other questions or thoughts or feedback for Reuben before we move on?
I just wanted to say, I think for landscaping, because I already do architecture in software engineering, I think you can be just logical and can do software engineering, but for that landscaping, you need to be far more creative, which, yeah, is the challenging bit for me. I would love to landscape and I love gardening, but yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
great point.
That's a good point.
All right, fantastic. Thanks again, Reuben, and good luck for your second presentation today as well, which you've got through work. So, okay, next up today, we have Rajani Rao, and she's going to be talking about breaking the mold, understanding Netflix's no rules culture. So, I will mute and over to you, Rajani.
Thank you. I have tried to say my screen show all windows and that. Yep, okay. You
Looks
can
good.
see. Yeah, great. Thank you. So I run a book club as part of Women Who Code London, and this was the book we chose. This book was it came at a perfect time in my life, and I was just looking at like the team performance and various bits, and I was thinking, God, am I being I was just trying to understand where I stand and what should be done about it. And this book I thought was fantastic. You take what you want from this book, because some bits are quite controversial and may not fit the company's culture, but there is a lot we can learn from this book. So to start, I'm Rajani Rao. I'm a principal engineer at uBlocks, and I just want to walk you through the main tidbits of this book. If someone has read this book already, that'll be great for some Q&A, but if you haven't, then I will quickly run it past you. So Netflix talks about connecting the dots. And I love how they say it's about connecting the dots, because when Blockbuster was so successful, the DVD via mail business was successful, Netflix already thought ahead and said, okay, because the internet is always going to get faster from where we are, we could actually stream the content online. And when Blockbuster went bust, Netflix was still going, and they've always pivoted in terms of starting Netflix movies. And they've even gone globally and have had global domination and survived COVID-19. So how is that they have been so successful and really pivoted? And what is their secret? So I think they can't harp enough about talent density. And it's very, very impressive to see at what levels they go to make sure that they preserve talent density. So talent density is you only recruit all rock stars at all levels. They can be admin, they can be receptionists, but rock stars all throughout, because they believe that if there's someone mediocre, it will pull the whole team down. And they just happen to realize talent density by accident. So when they were going through tough times, Netflix was going through tough times, they had to cull like 1/3 of the employees. And when they did that, they thought, oh my God, now we have to try and finish this feature, but with only a few employees. But what they found was fascinating, that the culling of like the people that they can do away with improve the productivity, not only because the talent density improved, their productivity skyrocketed, and that came as a surprise to them. They weren't expecting it. And since then, they believe in talent density and do whatever it takes to retain that talent. So they pay their employees at the market rate, and they don't even look at bonuses, right? Because bonus means you're working towards a predetermined goals, and in 1 year it becomes irrelevant, right? You're not agile in that sense, right? Things change and move, and the goals are no longer relevant. So you're allowing for flexibility and adapting to what is relevant and what's best for the company, rather than have these predetermined goals and then relate your bonus to it. The second thing is basically giving autonomy and decision making, taking away all the approvals, like travel and vacation policies were gone. And there's only one mantra: if it's in the best interest of the company, you don't even need an approval. But when questioned, if you're able to actually say why you did this purchase or why you did this travel, rather than getting hindered by these policies and rules, if you just if you could ask this question, is it in the best interest of the company? Yes, then of course you don't need any approvals. And one classic example was a 4K television. This junior engineer saw this 4K television, and it's quite important that this 4K television was required for the next afternoon to demo the House of Cards on a 4K Samsung television. But this junior engineer spotted that this TV was being disposed, and he realized that quickly, went and bought another replacement. And of course, it's quite a hefty sum, without any approval. And he made sure that the next day it just ran perfectly. And this is what the power of not having approvals, because you'll be otherwise, thinking, oh, can I do this purchase? And you're waiting for approvals, which actually shows the speed at which things, the pace at which things can progress in the company by taking away these policies. Then the third aspect is constructive feedback. And I love this thing, and I've taken this on board for myself as well, and my team and the company. And I did a reverse coaching to my CEO based on this. So this constructive feedback is very fascinating. Like, they have feedback at every level, every meeting. They have an agenda. Feedback is on the agenda to go to that level, and they have defined for a coaching, and all their employees are of course coached to give constructive feedback, right? Because feedback is not about getting something out of your chest. When you're angry, you're not saying something, right? It is basically how you, and they've all been coached to how to give constructive feedback, which I thought was really, really good. So they have this 4A principle: aim to assist, mean you have good intentions and you want the company to flourish, you want the employee to flourish. This is why you're giving the feedback. It's aim to assist, and it's actionable. It's not like, oh, I'm feeling this, but I can't say what exactly. So it has to be actionable as well, just like your goals. And this is how you give feedback to others. And there's whole 360-degree feedback. You can give feedback to anyone at any levels, and that's the culture. And when you're accepting the feedback, when you're receiving the feedback, you appreciate it, because there's always something that you can take away, even if you discard that feedback. So you can either choose to accept or discard, but appreciate that you receive the feedback, and you can get some thinking out of it, even if you think it's not really valid. The fourth point is trickle information. So they believe in trickling all the information down to the lowest level. So the decisions are made at the junior level, rather than someone above you making the decision without having much context of what's going on. And that is not where you want to be. And I love how they trickle all the information down and give all the lowest level the autonomy to make these decisions. And what this does is then people take responsibility and ownership for the decisions that they're taking, and thereby Netflix is so successful because everyone is taking that responsibility. And I think this is one of the biggest challenges that in teams, that every people feel the ownership and the responsibility, and I thought this is fantastic. And another distinction about how you should run your teams, businesses, organization, is not that they are like family members, because this hinders actually giving feedback. You don't give feedback, you walk around eggshells, and you're fine with your family being however, even if you're not aligned in some way with you disagree with your family member, you don't give feedback. But if you were to consider your team as a sports team, then you work together collaboratively, you give feedback, and the ones, even though they may be rock stars, but cannot play as a team, because for soccer, for example, you need team players. right? You can't always have an individual who always wants to like kick into the goal. It is a team effort, and if that is not happening, then they get rid of such employees who can't be team players. So I found that really like good thing to take it back, and it makes me feel okay, and okay about giving constructive feedback. And this is something that comes culturally for me, that I'm used to not giving constructive feedback because it's in my culture, but just knowing this has helped. It's made it okay for me to be able to give constructive feedback. And the last thing is transparency, and I love how they take transparency to the highest level. So even if like divisions are closing, they let their employees know, and people who want to go and leave or stick around, that's fine. They are so transparent. Every information, including the financial information, is shared with the employees, and of course said it is confidential. You have to keep it within within the company, but everyone knows what's going financially and strategy, so on and so forth. And leaders also are open and transparent about their failures. Okay, I messed up here, this went wrong, and that breeds the risk taking in the teams, and the employees are happy admitting to failures as well, because if leaders do it, then the team says, yeah, it's okay, and they open up about their mistakes rather than just sweep it under the rug. And I thought that we all can learn something or the other from this culture, and of course I have learned a big deal from this culture. Thank you.
Amazing. Thanks, Rajani. That was really interesting. I've not read the book myself. I noticed there's a question in the chat, so I'm going to jump to that first, from Peter Hicks. Ideas that work for Netflix might not work for smaller, less cash-rich companies. So what points from the book do you think can be applied to those smaller companies that, many of us, of course, work for?
Yeah, you're absolutely right that when so I think one of the reasons like this, so the smaller companies need to have like smaller, the talent density has to be rich, because I think smaller companies usually think, oh, I can get 10 people for the same job. But if you actually pay more and get one, one rock star, then your team becomes lean, and you don't need managers to manage this rock star, right? Because they are rock stars in themselves. So it's contrary to what we think, that okay, it's nice to have 10 people versus one rock star. And if you talk about pay, then you're paying this rock star the salary of 10 people. But in terms of value add, they actually add like 100 times the value. But it's again down to the company and their culture. You're right that Netflix culture can't be applied everywhere, but these are some things that we will have to bear in mind even for smaller companies, if you want to do. And for smaller companies, I think transparency, like, oh, the company, I work for smaller companies, and one of the things that you think it'll work other way, like, oh, we are going bust, and if you inform the employees, you think the employees will leave. Yeah, some will leave, but most of them stick around only because they now trust you. And we've done so with our company. So the things you think might affect the team actually works in worse way. So if you think you're not doing financially well, talk to the employees about it, and you actually may end up building trust in the employees, and they will follow you. So I think these are the 2 points I can think of. Is there any other points that you want to specifically talk about, Peter?
Whilst Peter's thinking about that, okay, no microphone, fair. There's another question from James in the chat. Actually, firstly, Yasia said that was a fascinating talk. Thank you so much. I agree. A question from James again. Thank you for the talk. And did you learn any areas where you think Netflix can improve?
Oh, it's I did think about some things that Netflix can change, because I wouldn't want to borrow everything from Netflix. And one of the things is rock stars, right? Just because you're not a rock star in one area doesn't mean you have to fire them. I would probably look at, you know, if you're a big company, there's like, I don't know, so like 13,000, 20,000 openings where they will be rock stars somewhere. So make sure they're moved around so they can be rock stars there. And in essence, when someone is not performing, it's not because it is not because they're good, because you hire them firstly because they're good. There's something that's going on, and trying to see what it is, and and working on that. So there's one thing that I would take it back to Netflix and say, hey, you know, you bring skills, and sometimes if you want rock stars, then moving these rock stars around, everyone is happy in that sense.
That's really interesting, and I'm glad you called that out, actually, because the word rock stars makes me twitch a little bit, because as life goes on, we can be rock stars some months, some years. There are other years we can't be rock stars. There are other years where there's stuff going on for us, and you know, maybe we're starting a family. That's not the year to be a rock star. That's the year to just be steady, take the money.
Yeah. And if you were in Netflix, you'd be fired.
Yeah, well, I don't know, but the terminology around rock stars does make me a little uncomfortable sometimes, because of the connotations of this work hard, play hard, I think can be toxic sometimes. But I think it's a really interesting take, and you called it out correctly at the start of your talk. There are aspects to take what works for you, and there are aspects, you know, that won't and doesn't work for all companies. But super interesting. Thank you so much. Thank you. Right, we are going to move swiftly on. We do only have 4 speakers today, so we have time. Our next speaker is, I'm probably going to say their surname completely wrong. Let me give it a go. Nezhinskaia?
Yeah, that's right.
Good enough. Thank you, very generous.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Brilliant. So Yasia, thank you so much for joining us. Your talk today is titled "Why Hackathon?" So I am looking forward to this. I have done one. I will hand over to you to educate us. Good luck. Nice. Have fun.
Hopefully you will. I will say something new for you guys.
I'm sure you will.
Not everything would be obvious. Just let me share my screen, please.
Yes. We didn't get a chance to practice, but it's going to work first time, so I'm confident. Okay. Right, perfect. You're off.
Thank you so much. Hi guys again. Thank you for having me. My name is Yaroslavna Nezhinskaia, and my speech is Why Hackathon? So I took part in 4 hackathons as for now, and I led like 8 amazing teams, and it was really great experience. And I would like to share with you what we will talk about today. So first we will talk about what is hackathon. I would like to share some secret benefits of hackathons, which I found, and also maybe some success stories, and how to start participation in hackathons. So what is hackathon? So it is a competition for the IT teams. This event can last different time. It can last for only 1 weekend, or it can last for a few months. So it really depends. Also, it can be offline, as on the first picture, and it can be online, as on the second. And this is my first hackathon, my first team. It was really nice experience, and it was online. So how can you benefit from hackathon? I tried to write everything in the slide, so we can go through it. First is you can add a new case in your portfolio and show it during the interview or in your CV. Also, if you don't have teamwork experience, it's a great idea to gather it there. Also, networking, you can meet really amazing people who are motivated, who would like to who would like to learn and to share knowledge. Also, it can be so the possibility to find a job. You can find really nice mentors there, or you can be a cool mentee. It depends on your level, actually. Also, also you can impress hiring manager by taking part in such amazing event. And also, you are free to implement anything what you like and however would you like. So it's really cool. You so it's very inspiring as for me. And the last thing is it's just pure fun, and it's totally worth it, actually. I would like to share something about me. So I have a small startup. I create and lead teams for hackathons. So I lead them from creation till the providing demo to the judges, and it's really great, great idea. So and some achievements. Last hackathon, we won best design nomination, and also we got some money. It's about £10 per one person, but still, it was really nice. This is our happy faces, and this is amazing people who took part in hackathon with me in different hackathons. Sorry. And also I would like to share with you our successful stories. So our designer got a job offer, which was really great. Our backend developer shared his experience at the job interview, and his the person who took interview from him, he was so impressed and motivated, and actually we are waiting for the job offer right now for this backend developer. Also some people understood that it is very fun and knowledgeable and experience, and they started to take part in hackathons constantly, which is really great, I think, as well. Yeah, and for example, on our last hackathon, we created an application, and it was so interesting for our developers that even after hackathon, they continue developing it and thinking how it can be done, what features they can add and everything, and it's really nice also. And finally, I want to share with you how to start participation in hackathons. So firstly, it's better to check your available slots, right? So atmosphere in hackathons is very friendly, so there is no need to be afraid of anything. And people are very supportive there, which I really like. Also, then after this first step, then you just go to Google, try to find a hackathon that will suit you. It's good to take into account the theme of hackathon, the title, how long will it last, if you will have this free time, difficulty of hackathon. Hackathons can be for beginners or for professional users, or for both. Also, format is great. It can be important. I took part only in online hackathons, but offline hackathons sometimes provide food, and it can be cool as well, as I heard. Then, so after that, you just register, and you can offer your friends to join this event. And just the main thing is to join at the day of hackathon and just have fun. Yeah, thank you for having me, and good luck with hackathons. This is linked to my LinkedIn. You're welcome to add me. Thank you.
Amazing, Yasia. Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
feel very uplifted now and like I want to go and
cool.
find a hackathon.
Cool.
Okay. I was going to ask you this question, but you know what? Rajani also wants to ask you this question. Any ideas how I can find a team to participate with me in hackathons?
Let's pair up, Helen.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Yeah, there are a few ways. You can ask your friends, because if you work in IT, I'm sure you guys are surrounded with amazing people, and it's just a matter of asking. Sometimes they can agree with you and take part. Second is there are a lot of chats with IT specialists. You can just shout there. And people will support you. Also, most of the hackathons that I took part in, it was possible to get teammates there on the event. And I think this is really nice idea, because you already have motivated people. They are already registered for this hackathon. They are available for this time. And yeah, it's great, actually.
It's really inspiring. I think there's quite a few people on the call that are kind of going, yeah, all right, I'm up for that. Sometimes, you know, certainly in my experience, they're sometimes organized as part of the company you work for as well. I know JetBrains do them. And now I'm like, next time there's a hackathon, I'm going to sign up for it. Because I often, you know, I'll make an excuse, or I'll be too busy, or whatever it might be. And I think one thing that's really come through for me watching that talk is not so much around the technology, but around the friendship and the camaraderie. That's a hard word to say. So yeah, thank you for that. And again, really, really great talk.
Thank you so much.
Mark, go for it.
Yes, Helen. I've got a very similar experience to you in that we sort of do hackathons. There are two sides to hackathons, so it's good for the people participating in them. But the other thing is giving feedback to the library writers that you're working with. So if you're working with a particular API, is to give feedback, and your experience of how discoverable it was to use their libraries, and how good you thought their documentation was. So I sort of work for a company who creates a Java library. I'm not going to say very much about it, but it's always really good to sort of observe hackathons and just look at how people use that software. You actually learn a lot, because the way you think people use it is very often massively different to the creativeness that goes on in a hackathon. But yeah, thank you. I enjoyed that talk.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree with you. Thanks.
Thank you, and thank you, Mark. Brilliant. Yes, yeah, thank you. I shall let you go. We'll move on to our final speaker of the afternoon. James Murdza. Am I pronouncing your surname correctly?
Hi.
Hello. How are you doing?
Good. Thanks a lot. Yes. Yeah. Actually, I'm going to be in one of my first hackathons next month, so I'm very excited.
Perfect.
Oh, nice. Good luck.
I will let you know how it goes.
If you could come back and give a lightning talk on my first hackathon, I think that would be amazing. Just putting it out there. Right. James, good luck. Have fun. I will mute and hand over to you. James is going to be talking to us about what a full stack developer should know in 2023. Oh, this is going to be a good one. Over to you, James.
Yes. Thank you very much for your attention. So, okay. So my name is James. I'm a developer. And today what I want to talk about is why this is really a passionate topic for me. I'm also going to talk a little bit about what are the current things, what are the current skills that are in demand. And then I'm going to talk about four things which have exploded in the past years, for technologies, and talk about why I think that is. So I actually talked to a lot of junior developers, and I was recently talking to some junior developers that came out of a boot camp recently, and despite them going through like a really thorough learning process in the boot camp, they find it really difficult to get a job, even shortly after graduating. And I think that's because it's getting harder and harder for junior developers to actually enter the market. Why could that be? Well, first of all, there's just more and more junior developers. More people are deciding, oh, I'd like to quit my job and become a software developer. On top of that, you know, a lot of senior developers, they're leaving. You know, they've gotten what they needed, and if they figure, you know, with COVID or whatever, that this is potentially a good time to retire. Remote work also makes it more difficult for developers to be trained. You know, you don't have that ability to just learn one-on-one with someone else in the office. It's a lot more tiring to learn from your seniors when you're working remotely. On top of that, you know, when there's as we've had recently, you know, a lot of fluctuations in the demand for software, and a lot of changing market conditions, you know, when there's a huge spike in something and it has to happen fast, then often it's the senior developers which are in the most demand. So what all of that comes down to is basically in order to be able to compete, I mean, all of us, but especially junior developers, really have to be aware of, you know, what are the skills, what are the things that are most needed, and to do our best to upskill and to improve. So I was curious, and I went to LinkedIn, and I did a quick search for full stack jobs. Now I only looked at the first 50 results, and a lot of the jobs that got mixed in were actually not full stack. So this isn't necessarily the most accurate data that you'll find out there, but still some really interesting things came up. You can see already that the third skill is AWS, which is something that is something that a lot of junior developers can already start upskilling into. Also pretty interesting to see that Go was a more in-demand skill than Java. So Go is growing really quickly for a number of applications. And then something else that's quite interesting from this data is that like there's a lot of data related skills. So SQL, Redis, machine learning, and NoSQL are all there in the top 10. And these are also areas that, you know, a lot of junior developers might be able to easily upskill into if they put a little bit of effort into it. Now, that's just what is on the market now. But I thought it would be really interesting to have a look at, you know, how have things changed in the last year, and are there any trends which we can analyze, things that might be growing rapidly. So I went to a website you might know about called StackShare, and I found a way to extract some historical data from the website. And so for, I don't know, maybe 50 or 100 different technologies, I figured out how much that technology has grown. By the way, this is the StackShare people voluntarily contribute, you know, which technologies they're using in their stack at their company. That's what it measures. And so I could figure out how these stacks have changed in the past year and which technologies are growing very fast. So the first trend that I saw was Terraform. And if you don't know of Terraform or infrastructure as code, it just simply explained. Normally, when you will set up some services in a cloud host, you will go on the website and you will, you know, configure it. And then infrastructure as code, and Terraform is the most popular tool, allows you to do that all programmatically, you know, with a script or a configuration file that automatically updates your infrastructure. And now Terraform has jumped up by 100% usage in the past 12 months. And I wasn't surprised that it had grew a lot, but that is something really remarkable. And I think that the reason why that is is two things. I mean, of course, you know, cloud hosting, cloud adoption, and microservices are just soaring right now. But on top of that, I think there's just so many different new options, you know, aside from AWS and the big players to choose from. And that makes Terraform really the only tool suitable for most companies that want to build on, you know, a lot of platforms at the same time. And that's a relatively recent thing. Now, the second trend I saw is that Flutter is really taking off. To just briefly explain, you know, about this rivalry, this ongoing rivalry between Flutter and React Native. They're both tools for making cross-platform mobile applications. And React Native is developed by Facebook and Flutter is developed by Google. They roughly accomplish the same thing, but in very different ways. And what I saw from the past year is that Flutter has actually grown by 75% increase. And this image here is just an example of a Flutter app that one could develop with Flutter. And React Native has only increased by 22% usage in the past year. Now that's really interesting. And I dug a little bit deeper, and I found that last year was the first year that Flutter apps were more popular than, or were more abundant than React Native apps on the Google Play Store. And by the projection of how things are going, this year, Flutter apps will actually take over and surpass React Native apps on the iOS App Store. This is actually a new piece of information for me, because I always thought React Native was the most popular. Why is Flutter taking over? I think a lot of it comes down to the fact, this is my hypothesis. I think a lot of it comes down to the fact that there's a lot of newer developers on the scene, and React Native is just not intuitive enough for those new developers. I mean, React comes with, there's a version called React, there's React Native, and there's React Native Web. And one of the reasons why React is more complex is that React tries to integrate with the native components of the iOS or the Android OS that you're using. And what Flutter does is it completely abstracts and replaces the native components with its own components. But what you get is that this is actually a much more intuitive way for like a brand new developer to think. And one piece of data that supports that is that in a lot of developing countries, Flutter has taken over by a storm. So I think that shows that, you know, that for newer developers, Flutter is just a lot less confusing for them. The third trend that I saw was with Next.js. And you definitely know about React. You probably know about Next. React is a software front-end library which allows you to break everything down into very highly reusable components. And when React came out, people really loved this way of restructuring their code. And what happened was all of the logic ended up being put into the client side, and that made your applications very reusable, but it also lowers the performance, you know, if all of the logic is being done in the client side. And with what Next.js does is it allows you to choose. You're still using everything with React, but you can choose, okay, is the logic going to be on the client side, or should we do it on the server side, or should we cache it on the server side and then pre-generate that content and then later serve it? And on top of that, there's also now serverless functions, which basically allow you to have just that particular web server, which is server-side rendering, but to have it as a microservice. And the trend that that I saw was that Next.js has increased by 56% in the last year, which is already a lot, and that Vercel, which is both an organization that created Next.js, but is also a hosting platform for serverless hosting, has increased by 83%, which is quite a bit. Why is this? Well, I think it's a couple of things. First of all, like I mentioned, like performance. Performance is becoming really important. I mean, performance is always very important, but you know, in order for React to, you know, reach to be able to apply in all different circumstances, like it needs to be able to have high performance. And then on top of that, you know, a lot of things are going serverless, and I think that's why we see like the huge jump in people jumping to Vercel, which is the most well-known platform for hosting Next.js, and it's serverless as well. The final trend that I saw from these numbers is in the way that databases and in the way that data is used in applications. So basically, type safety in programming, it allows you to basically say, instead of just, let's say, for example, we're working, instead of using like dictionaries and numbers, you might have a type like users and bookings, and to define your own types and to basically ensure that the code and the logic that you're using is adhering to the types that you have defined and that you want to use in your code. And I think like TypeScript, as you know, has grown a lot in the past few years. What this trend that I'm seeing is that you know, type safety is not just something that is a part of the language, but now it's been extended to both ORM and to the APIs. And those are some acronyms, but what that really means is that instead of just defining your types in the code once and then defining them again for the API, and then again in the database, you can use an ORM that lets you define your schema once, and for the code and the database, and then you can also use something like GraphQL, which basically allows that API to use the same schema that's being used by both the database and the code. And I think this is actually something that's really interesting. I was thinking about, you know, why just now, you know, has something like Prisma taken off, and GraphQL only fairly recently. And I think that the evolution of TypeScript over the past few years is probably like a big part of that. On top of that, I think that like this having type safety throughout your whole application like just allows you to develop faster and to prototype big applications more quickly. So yeah, so that's it. Those are the trends that I saw. I've been recently learning a lot, and I will be posting shortly a lot more of the data that I've been digging through and some more analyses. So if you're interested, feel free to follow me on Twitter, and I will also be posting all of this data. Looking forward to hearing your thoughts and your feedback.
Fantastic. Thanks, James. That was really interesting. Even for a Java developer, that was interesting. So there's a few comments in the chat. So Diego has pointed out that Flutter Forward Extended London is on this Monday. So if that's your cup of tea, that's available. Rajani, Flutter is created and supported by Google, which gives an assurance, yes, of its stability. Of course, it's got Google behind it. Probably why, you know, we're seeing the uptake that we are. Yes, some will Flutter end up in the Google graveyard. I don't think the Google graveyard's getting kind of full, I think. I mean, they may need a new graveyard soon. This is being recorded, isn't it? So some random thoughts. Do you think it will take over AWS serverless? If so, should we be upskilling in Vercel instead of AWS, something AWS can focus on to support something similar to Vercel front-end development? Any thoughts on that?
Deployment, yeah.
Great,
Yeah.
thank you.
Oh, thanks a lot for the great feedback. This is and from Rajani, like your first comment is quite interesting. It's something that I hadn't thought of. I just started, you know, doing this research very recently. As far as your second question, I think this is actually something that I've been thinking about a lot. AWS has become so popular because they offer so many different services, and there's like a service for everything. The downside to that is they just put out stuff so quickly that the console becomes this place where, as I like to quote a comment I saw recently on Hacker News, where assassins go to hide dead bodies. Like, you cannot, if you're beginning, if you're a beginning developer, then it is so difficult to use AWS. And even I myself have racked up charges on things that I like couldn't figure out what was going on. And I think like that a lot of the evolution that's happening in the last year has been in not just Vercel, but like dozens of different platforms like this that provide something like AWS, but does it in a way that's easier to use. I mean, if you look at like Netlify, for example, or like Cloudflare, they're doing similar things to AWS, but with like an interface that makes sense to people. And I think there will be a lot of more innovation where people can just add a layer on top of AWS, and then make it something, maybe even a low code or no code tool that will then make it easier for people to access that kind of flexibility.
Yeah.
I predominantly use AWS. In fact, like 20 years ago, when cloud was, like, hey, the security, hey, this, can you host? I walked my company to the hosting, and I absolutely loved it. And I still carry on. It's that 99%, that 1% is I don't like, bits about like but this and but that, but it's been really good. And you are right that it gives so much. And there's so many services coming, even as a, I'm a qualified, like certified architect, but it is so much, it's like every other day. And I have actually started this community of practice in my company just to keep on top of their releases. So I agree with what you say. And I found your talk really insightful and enjoyed it, James. It was really good, like this, and it makes you think about, hey, what is the next technology I should be focusing on, or using in my company, right? So thank you.
Brilliant. Everyone, we are out of time. I just want to give a final shout out to Reuben, Rajani, Yasir, and James. Incredible talks. Thank you so much. And thank you to everyone else who came along, listened in, learned something, participated. You are appreciated. Enjoy your Friday afternoon. I've made an assumption there that you're all on a similar time zone to myself, but if not, enjoy the rest of Friday. And yeah, thanks again. Take care.
Thank you all. Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.